I suppose for today I'm playing the role of co-chair.
Right.
Okay. And so anyway, and I think good to see you. All right. I think I know everybody. Good to see you all. Okay. Great. Well, first of all, thank you to all of you for the work that you've been doing heretofore. And thanks to Coleman and everything for giving me the agenda so that I have an opportunity to come and kind of, sit down and discuss. What we want to discuss today is where we are and where we're going. Okay, so that's what we're here to discuss. And clearly there will need to be some time of review and assessment of where we are so that we can get a better sense of together where we want to go. Okay, so with that, if you'd like me to, I can just kind of walk through some of these things, and then we can have an open discussion, and then kind of put down some, next steps points. Okay. So, first of all, just if you could let me know what was your common regular meeting schedule?
Monthly meetings.
Okay, so you're having a regular monthly meeting.
Right,
okay.
And we had discussed the possibility of meeting over the summer and
okay.
so forth, and and so that's kind of basically the way it's worked.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, good. One thing we'll need is a bigger room. So, so we can get the visuals and so on. Okay. A couple things. We're going to move forward. All right, but we're going to have to move forward under, some changed circumstances. So as far as the facilities planning committee is concerned, your activity, the charge of the committee and your activity has not changed. Okay, that will go forward. And what we'll discuss today and what you will inform me of better today is what are the things that you have on your map of things to do, and how you're moving through that. And then we won't make any final decisions today, but we'll make some preliminary kinds of decisions about, okay, how do we look at this, how do we take that, and so on. As I've been going through and I've spent some time with the facilities team and so on, and we've done the same thing where we just kind of stop, pause, put everything on the wall so that I am aware of it, okay, and to provide the answers that everybody needs, to a lot of questions. And then we say, some of them we have answers, some of them, we don't have answers, and we'll go looking for them, and some things will need to be adjusted as far as the priority is concerned. Okay. One thing that I would like to say is that I think you all agree with me that the absolute goal of the committee is that we must do everything out in the sunlight with 100% transparency. Okay, which is not to say that this committee has not been doing that, but as I have been moving through this really extraordinary situation, I am learning more and more that I had not been informed of, and I want to be frank with you about that. Okay, so that's a difficulty, and that the board has not been informed of. Okay, so all of you understand process, and our partners that have worked with us for many years are process engineers. Okay, so what we want to do is our first task is to make sure that, first of all, we want to determine, whether it's the Centennial plan or anything else, what are the outcomes? What are the things that we have on our agenda of things that we want to accomplish? All right. And then to work backward from that not to start doing that, but to, and I know that you had a process, and I don't want to disrespect it, but that process will necessarily have to be remapped now. Okay, so no one's going anywhere, and no one's, we're all going to do that together. But the cost, what I see that we ought to do now is to engineer a process. Okay. And I do want to express the concern, and it has not the responsibility of anybody in this room, I do want to express the concern that especially with the Centennial Master Plan, that process was moving along too quickly for me, okay, and too quickly for the board. I do have to say, though, that the way it started was brilliant. I loved the way you started. That you came. It's just absolutely masterful. It's wonderful, and I want to be frank about the aftermath of that. So my understanding may have been my misunderstanding that was the beginning of the process and not close to the end of it. And I was, been informed and learned that we were rolling up to a product in the fall. That's impossible to think that we could do a master plan for the next 12 years for the Centennial with one meeting that you have in the spring, and then you bring back a draft and sold to America. Okay. And I think, if I may, and again, this is my responsibility. Okay. This is no criticism of anybody, but I think that's part and parcel of what in some senses, in terms of our shared governance, we have needed to fix for quite some time. Okay. This is wonderful. First of all, I want to say that I'm so heartened by this, because at this time in the college, the Centennial Master Plan, let's just take that as your major project, because, the Centennial Master Plan, especially as the way you got it started. So I'm not here to say, oh no, just do a do-over and start all over again. Okay. So I think what we have so far is okay. We just need to reboot the process from here. Okay. But I think that process is so important because for any college at any time, but especially for our college at this time, this process is about engaging our energy in imagining the future. Okay, because we're obviously all, deeply, shocked about, about the past, and this is the project that may give everyone in the college an opportunity to say, there's a future out here, okay, and we're all going to be part of creating it. So you know where I'm going. Okay. So one thing, I'm not here to stop the Centennial Master Plan. We may give it a new title, don't know, and so on and so forth. But I want to credit and own what you've started with. But I do think that we should take some time as we move through the summer here and relieve ourselves and be relieved of any pressure of a deadline. There is none. Okay, because what the board and I want to make sure of is that the entire process that leads to a final master plan that everyone in the college has inputted to, has signed on to, faculty, staff, and students, and is the plan that we all know and that we're ready to go out to the community and support. So, without being any more detailed than that, at least my experience is that kind of process takes at least a full year. Okay. So from where we sit now, I'd say as a loose goal to have something this time next year. Okay, and that's in 13. Because at that point, and with, you know, a little clearer engineering of the process of how it goes through the groups and on up to the board and so on and so forth. And then finally, and then once you have that, and it's like, wow, this is what we have, then as you're moving through that, then the next step is how to secure funding for it. And clearly, one of the ways that we would secure funding for it is by going out to the community and seeking a bond. And in order to do that, we need to have our act together. We need to, you know, be able to demonstrate to the community that we know what we're doing and that we've had an open process and that, you know, and so on and so forth. And I'm fully confident we can do that. So, so that was the main thing that I wanted to say. And so I think whether we kind of, I'm not saying that we don't have to meet anymore this summer, but what I would like to do is to have this discussion and then have some time to meet with all of the, you know, the partners and members of the committee and just kind of, you know, upload everything. And so that together out in the open on a, you know, on a board, we can make a new map. Okay. And then other projects that are on your agenda. Okay. These that are, say, you know, less comprehensive than the master plan project. Obviously, the ongoing sustainability project that we're all supportive of. That will go forward. There's no plan to scuttle it, but it needs a review. It needs a review, and it needs and again a time to do a thorough, independent review, you know, that we're all involved in, so that again we can reboot, you know, what is, for example, in sustainability. You work back from the outcome. Now, I am to understand that the outcome was meeting the President's Global Climate Initiative. Okay. Is that it? Could be. Okay, but usually in sustainability you start from, okay, what is it that we're trying to accomplish by when? Okay. That's a common one, and I've heard it spoken of on campus. But I want to make sure that's the one. And then once we have that, you work back from the outcome to engineer a process to move to that. Okay. I think actually this is an opportunity that it actually, for the Centennial Plan of Sustainability, it could be better. And I'm sure that there are other projects that you're concerned about or that you had going. So some of the questions I've received on all fronts, but especially facilities, we were doing this. Should we go or stop? Okay, so that we'll have to look at that. And then if you haven't started the project, then we have to look at it and then begin to look at what the priorities are. And then clearly, obviously, look at what the funding is, potential funding. So those are the general comments I wanted to make. And so we can, my time is yours, so we can take it from there. As I said, I've spent some comprehensive remapping sessions, and we've gotten quite a bit far down the field with some of the facilities, and we are remapping business and fiscal services. Just came from a meeting with our accounting team. So we're making good progress, but now we're here together. So if you want to take some time with this today, I'm yours. So.
President Rector, we're with full understanding and support. I think as a committee, everybody can completely understand. And I just wanted to share with you perhaps some of the process, because we're bringing you up to speed that we've been through and so forth, just so that you get an idea of how we've been working and so forth, and some things that, you know, you might want to consider in thinking about the future sort of direction of the committee. On the master plan, which is a separate entity, it's one entity that we deal with, and it's kind of our biggest, obviously it's our biggest focus at this time. We broke into, basically we've had the visioning session and so forth, and then we've broken into different subgroup categories of working, such as sustainability, accessibility, sorry Lisa, thank you, as well as specific concerns for specific buildings and so forth. And so we've had some good meeting that I think that will be able to kind of provide you with
Sure.
I mean with information on that you can read and so forth, and so you can see. And regardless of what we do, if we pick up and go forward in the process, I think a lot of the work we've done is still good work. It's information and so forth, and I think that the architects would say this. It was good information and so forth. But regarding the process and things like that, this is, you know, in setting the goals, I think that those priorities will then begin to shape the way we even process that information, right? And so we'll put it into new scenarios and so forth. And I think that that's one thing that I think that we're all comfortable with the basic principles that you're talking about, because I think that, again, I just want to assure everybody, I don't think that any of the information and the hard work you've done will be lost. I think that it'll be used and so forth. The other thing that I want to say that I think is an important part of the committee, which is ongoing, is just simply an awareness of what is happening on the campus, both for information so that we disseminate it to the college community about what construction's going on in the campus, but also for input, because this is the one place where we can do it. And so Jack has been an important part of that, kind of updating us on projects and so forth. And I hope today that we get that update, just because for myself as an architect, I'm always interested to know what's going on and so forth. But I think that that's kind of a special piece of what happens in these regular meetings and so forth, and we update each other on that. And then I think that the other projects, as you mentioned, that have different priorities come up and so forth, and and it's also kind of nice to imagine that maybe the way we do things in the future might be different. We could even have, for example, a meeting where we talk about sustainability the whole meeting long. Just to be able to address those issues and kind of raise certain things. But I think that it'll have to do with the priorities set.
Sure.
So that's just background, and I want to leave I think it's important that everybody here at the table has a say.
Sure.
So
how can I help? How can I be helpful to, kind of move us forward, see where we are, see how we're going, and next steps?
I don't want to speak, I'm sort of an interlocutor here, but I do want to say that I'm really glad to hear your comments and the fact that you're going to be more involved. In our experience, and we were a little disappointed that there was kind of subtracted out, I think it was for dollar reasons, there weren't more outreach meetings like the visioning session. We had several of them planned, and that just for budgeting reasons they got cut out. But the one thing that I will say is that our most successful master plans for campuses have been ones in which the president has been involved. And so I know you have limits on your time, but the more that you could give of your time to this process, I think the results will be better. And I think we could frankly use your leadership to be able to move things forward as we go along. And I don't know how to. I'm asking for your time when I know that it's a rare thing, but I think that we would welcome that, and I think at the end of the day, the campus and the community would benefit from that more hands-on approach. Right. And at the end of the day, ultimately, you have to engage this as your vision as well. So it's important, I think, that we at least have the time to make sure we understand what that is, and we can incorporate and make sure that's a part of the plan.
No, well, I couldn't agree more. And again, and I not only I'm ready, willing to do that, and obviously going to structure my own practice and time moving forward so that I can do that. And also, that would include, of course, the board.
Of course.
Because what, I mean, I have my thoughts and ideas, and I've, completed campus master plans in the past. But we have, I'm an agent of trying to get this, the board's goals forward. So for example, which is to me a fun project, but so if we were spending time and so on, you would not find me say, well, no, I like that building. That's not what. But we have a motto: "Proud Past, Global Future." So how is what the board and I want to know? How is the idea of global future expressed
Right.
in the plan? How is that communicated, both in terms of use, and other elements of the plan? So, and I think I should say that I want to be clear that if I don't mince words. So if I thought that there was something to scuttle or change, or that there was a serious course correction, I would say it today. Okay. I do think that everything that you've done heretofore is spot on. Okay. But I think there's two issues, which is not just to the facilities committee. Okay. It's to all the committees. I'm often still, frankly flummoxed by the fact that you do these committees, you go out, you fan out, and so on. I spend most of my life in shared governance meetings. I mean, meeting after meeting after meeting, we get through the email, on the website, and so on. And then when you get to the moment of truth, when you get to the decision point, you say, well, I don't know. What happened? Okay. The recent restructuring things, like you go through that for the year, and you don't. We haven't engineered a process in which is everybody's in. There's nothing left out. There's no dark corners. Everybody has to contribute and so on. So that's what I would hope for here, and that may take some more some time and expense. And if that's a priority for us, then we're going to have to move some other expense out of the way. And that leads me to my other point. The title of this committee is Facilities Planning. Okay. If you don't have a budget, there is no planning. Okay? So when I chair a committee, I ask for the budget. Okay. Now, it's there somewhere, and I'm still looking for it. Okay? But we have to be clear that, look, that's one of the things of the mapping. We're going to have way more things that we want to do than we have funds available. Okay? And some of this issue that many people have raised about the Fund 41, the capital outlay. Okay? Well, that's a common fund. Say, well, you're hiding money, okay, because you could be using that for course sections. Well, this committee and I have to decide together. Well, and I'm not used to having a separate Fund 41. It should be built into your budget, and it should be going to the middle of the table for facilities planning. And then you make the recommendations rather than just say, well, we sweep it in, and then as we have projects through the year, we'll just kind of do this and this and this. Okay. What we should be doing at this, especially at this part of the year, and that's why I want to spend the summer with you, saying, okay, what are our projects? Let's get them on the map. This is, not this, the Centennial Master Plan was one. Okay. What are our available funds? That's planning. And then you would look at both, and you'd say, okay. And usually my preference is that you make recommendations that fully fund at the level of excellence a whole thing, rather than thin out the gruel, the soup, and just some things are going to have to get knocked off the bottom of the priority list. That's the hard work of planning when you've got need and budget, and the budget doesn't cover the whole need, as it will not. So one of the things I want to do, in which we always ought to do in the interest of transparency, is know how much money you're working with. And if that's clear to you, it's not clear to me.
It's not.
Okay,
I mean,
so,
I mean, what you just said is
yeah,
clear,
right.
but I just want to say that I can see that structurally that is an
Right.
entirely
And we
different
can-
discussion that we're having
We can
now.
fix that fast.
And that would
we
be,
can-
I think that would be nice, and I think the committee would like that.
Right.
And then I think also it means that we work then with the budget committee, you know,
Right.
or perhaps we would have a deeper interface with other committees. And so I think that is something that we would all, I think that would be I mean, it's a new responsibility for us and so forth, but I think it's an appropriate one.
Yeah.
You know, and it what it does is it will, I mean, for all of us on the committee, it's going to mean that we have an additional responsibility and so forth. And I think that's a good thing. I mean, it's a shared responsibility.
Yeah, no,
So-
I think that would be, I mean, that's the common approach to transparency, is, you know, and planning.
Right.
You know, because if you don't, you always know what you want to do, but if you don't know how much money you're working with, then you just not have everything you need to make the best recommendations. So we can get there. So first of all, is there any, as I've been going through each stop in the college, all right, this is not so much an operational meeting as it is a planning shared governance meeting. You know, I said, you know, the first thing that I want to do is make sure that I have everyone's input and everybody's voice in. Is there some concern? Okay, is there something flapping in the breeze? If there's something that I need to hear so that we can get you an answer, yes or no, you're worried about something. Something's coming up in the next 30 to 60 days, okay? Because what we're trying to do is to kind of get that seen to so that we can buy some time to do this work that I'm talking about through the summer and the fall. Or anything else that's a concern that, you know, you want to make sure that you have in my mind as we're, you know, moving forward.
I had a question.
Sure.
You mentioned working with the Board of Trustees and the college. With this committee, how would that work? Because I know that we make reports sometimes to the Board of Trustees on the facilities master plan. And so I'm just wondering, is there anything different that this board would be doing now to present our information that we've put together and spend so much time onto the board to make sure that there's that really good communication between the two entities?
Sure, that's a great question. And I think our architect partners could tell you that there's a, you know, pretty much a best practice, you know, kind of model for how you do, you know, master planning. One common best practice is that you do many boards and have some kind of a subcommittee, or a, you know, so that they would have a budget, facilities, and technology committee, and so on. And so that might be one recommendation that I'd make to the board, so that as you're working on the plans, you're interfacing regularly with a committee of the board. Whereas the process is now, you do what you do, and then one night we go like this for 40 minutes. That's difficult, okay? And then, of course, when you get there, the board's hearing it for the first time, right? And then the other members of the community haven't heard it, are going, whoa, 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 wait a second. Right, I haven't heard this, and I don't like it. So now I'm coming to the board, and so what the board is hearing, I'm not saying in this particular case, but what the board is hearing, although we had some good, is, if you will, the plan and the recommendation, and then people coming in to say, well, I wasn't part of it, I don't like this part of it, I don't, so on and so forth. So one way to do that would be to, this committee is intact, is not going anywhere, okay? But to figure out what are the input points to this committee, and kind of in a hub and spoke iteration thing, and then, how would we, circulate what we're doing so that by the time you make a final recommendation, you've met with the constituents and so on. Sometimes there's a hearing process, and it talk, and I think getting your that first meeting, that first input meeting, and getting that, scaling that, so that, but on a, you did that on a massive scale one day, but now I'd say you need to go into the villages, okay, and get, and then, because as good as that was, if you went into one of the villages, the first thing they're going to say is, oh, that's nice, it's the first I've ever seen it. Right? That's a great idea. Well, when did you do that? Okay, and you can say, right, in a process, right, and sometimes you guys, rightfully challenge me for it. You can say, oh well, but we sent the email, and we called the meeting, and we did it out in the open, but you still didn't know, and that's an us responsibility, not a constituent responsibility. So that would be an example. I do think that there needs to be some interface point with the board, away from the footlights, that enables to get, kind of dispassionate kind of input. And that's helpful too, because as board members have minds of their own, and if they have, some hot buttons or anything like that, we should get those on the table sooner rather than later, than to get all the way to the process, and then you put me in the position of having fight for something that you're recommending when we already have 2 or 3 votes against it, and this is something that you want to go 7-0 on, right?
Absolutely.
You can't go to a bond unless we go 7-0, ANS, everybody goes, we're in.
Well,
So it's not soup until we have that.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm really glad to hear you say this, because one of the things that we've been a little worried about is that the time to get this kind of input is when we've done a lot of these sub-meetings and gone to the villages and had some of those discussions, got a lot of that feedback.
Oh, great.
And are trying now to craft alternatives. And it's the sharing of those alternatives is where we need the feedback, and where we need board to come to the table, so that we hear what the views are on the different ones, and out of that, it may not be one individual one, may be some composite, but that's where you get the consensus and the buy-in, if they feel like they've been a part of the process. And I welcome that. We really, I think that's our normal way of doing things, so we're really happy to hear it. And I think it will make everything much more successful. And I was glad to hear you say that this could actually be a part of the healing process for the campus. In our experience, people like to talk about a hopeful future for the place where they really have fond feelings and are getting educational support and all that. And so I really feel like it's a way that can help bring the community together again and focus on a positive future.
Right. No,
It's right where we are, too, actually.
Exactly.
I mean, we've gone out to the villages, and as you say, and all of those meetings have been very well documented. We've got all the notation from all of that. And as Richard said, now we're putting together these alternatives, and it's exactly the point at which we are now. So it's good timing in that regard.
And it was a speedy process. I mean, you even mentioned that at our visioning session. And I'm not sure I was quite familiar with the reasons why it was so short, but in our experience, they have gone at least a year, sometimes even longer, and it allows. In the shared governance process, communication takes more time, but you have to allow for it, and the results at the end of the day are that much better because of it. I think you'll get the buy-in, the consensus you need.
Yeah, because you can do all of the planning, even go to building design, and have everybody behind it. In fact, without putting yourself under any deadline pressure, because we're in June of 12. If that puts us out to June 13. About this time next year, we should be having a product. And then we start to look at the bonding aspect. So we may not be going out for a bond until June, or whatever the most the best date is, March, June, November of 14. Okay, so we have a lot of work to do, but that should just play out. So you never want to go to the community unless you're absolutely ready, and and the community is supportive. That's another piece. Tonight we have Measure P Oversight Committee. Okay, they obviously should be an input point to this because they've had the the expertise and the oversight over the previous bond. We have a community neighbors meeting. And I don't know how it was done back in 2000 or 2001, but we have a regular community neighbors meeting. They should have an input point. And then obviously our constituents out in the community, our advisory groups, our business advisory groups, our foundation. There's a lot of input points that we need to gather, both because, the communal the process makes the product better, but it also helps to guarantee the success of the bond. And as I say, I'm convinced it'll be a big part of the healing process. Jim, you were going to say?
Well, I think we're poised to have some really effective and collaborative idea sessions coming up. And as you know, if you've been in any meeting and you go with nothing and you say, okay, we need to create this, well, everyone sits around like this.
Right.
But the minute you bring something,
right.
immediately it creates other ideas, it elicits reactions, all that. So I think, we've gotten through that first step, and I can, just looking at these, we're all kind of trying not to look at these as we're engaged in.
No, and I'd love to, and I will look for. I'd love to hear this,
And so immediately, already I've got like 10 things I want to say, but it's because there's something to react to, and so I think, if we can get through the summer and be ready to go out to the campus community with several ideas that evoke that kind of participation, I think that will happen very easily.
Yeah.
And if I could just simply say something to Jim, I think that also, though, what we have to kind of hear President Roach is saying to us is that even some of the assumptions we made initially that generated these responses by the architects are assumptions that he wants us to to consider. And so it's not necessarily that we're focused just on this as a product, and they can speak to that. I think that we, he really wants us to, he wants us to be able to kind of begin to reset the goals of what we're actually going to focus on and what we're going to, a process like this shouldn't be reactive. It should be proactive, and then it becomes then it becomes a discussion. Yeah. And so forth. And so I think that that's really what so we don't, and yeah.
Yeah.
I heard you say 12 years for the project. Was that what you said?
Well, if you, at least on the Centennial Master Plan, the Centennial of the college is the year 2024.
Okay.
So that's 12 years from now.
Okay.
And
Okay, and then I just wanted to say, AS puts students on all of the subcommittees because we value student participation as part of shared governance. We really value shared governance as we are a very large constituent group on this campus. But speaking as a member of this committee, as a whole, we weren't given an operating budget for this plan. As far as I'm concerned, there wasn't an RFP for the visioning process for the FMP 100. Although, AC Martin and PB Douglas are very impressive. I was there through the presentation. I feel the process was rushed between the initial adoption of the plan for us to create an FMP 100 as a committee, and then to bring outside firms on board to consult with us. And then I do know that PBWS and AC Martin cost $400,000 for the visioning. So if we're going to be extending the process of the FMP 100, how much will that cost for facilities and planning to continue to work with AC Martin and PBWS?
That's the question I'm supposed to ask.
Yeah, no, Hannah, I think your points are all excellent, and you should have answers to them. And that's exactly what I'm saying, is that let's give all of us, including me, a little time to reboot this and get the answers to your question. Because we need to move through with our partners. We need to, move through so that once we, throw the switch to phase 2, we're all in agreement. But I also should have to say, which is, again, we talk about shared governance, but ultimately there is one decision maker. Your task is to make recommendations to me and to the board. And I make the final recommendation and the board makes the final decision. So we will never have a recommendation in the history of mankind, especially with one as broad as this, in which everybody is going to agree. In fact, you cannot make unanimity the requirement for forwarding a recommendation. Okay, but having said that, you don't want to move forward unless there's a really strong consensus, about the core. The core objectives of it. So, this is exactly what I'm here to do, Hannah, is say, okay, what is it that we want to get done? How much is it going to cost? And, and make a process that will make that happen. So,
Hi, I actually was listening to the conversation, and a lot of the questions that were brought up seem similar. And I thought maybe I could provide a tool, and it's called logic models. Has anybody heard of them? They provide a what-if model of beginning, middle, and end, both for what you're planning and projecting to do, and then the outcomes based upon it. And it's one of those more useful tools. I don't have the paperwork. I can have it appeared by tomorrow because it's at home, and I'd happily bring it to someone if they are interested in the idea and willing to work with it, and then they could copy it, and they could have both an example, a how to use it, and a possibility of incorporating within this committee and helping everybody out. It would also help in the recommendation process, both for you and the board. Okay. So that's really what I wanted to contribute.
I'm always open to better ways. So bring it forward. But I'd say is one way, if you're familiar with that model, and many of us at the table have many models that we're familiar with, then you can take the raw material that we're dealing with. Would be very helpful to the committee. Take the raw material yourself that we're dealing with and pour it through your model and see what comes up. Well, that's what I'm saying, is that we ought to be talking about the real deal so that you have the...
well, I think what you said earlier is, I think, really a foundational thing, and that is, let's go back and decide what we want our outcomes to be. Make sure that we're all still on the same page with that. And then, based on that, we can see what we have to do to adjust the process and move forward and so forth. But just kind of a confirmation that we all want to go to the same place, because I think we, I want to say this in some politic way, I think there was some push that happened about how the outcomes were established, and I think there was some discussions and some disagreements about that, and for us, it's important to make sure that those are still the ones that we want to follow through with, and then we can understand what the pathway would be.
Right. Well, I think sometimes if you slow is the new fast. If you go slower, you actually kind of speed up. Measure twice, cut once.
Right.
Because if you rush things, okay, you have to backfill so much You have to explain to people what you did, why you did it 150 times. People don't like it because you decided. And, you know, it just makes things longer. Here's the only goal that I want to be clear about, okay? Whatever we, you know, name the project, it's the centennial of the college. And the goal is to develop a master plan and execute and build it for the fall of 2024. That's 12 years from now. Okay, so we need to now work back from that. That's my parameter. Okay, so if you do that, then you're taking a year out for planning, right? Probably another year out for preliminary design and footprinting and so on, so that you can prepare for the bond program. You know, maybe another year in, you know, in moving through the bond and so on, determining what your you know, swing space needs are going to be in order to do it, and what your plan of attack are going to be. And that gives you, you know, maybe 8 years, you know, 8 years, 9 maximum of construction, you know. So it can be done, but I think you can only, even that is an aggressive plan, okay? So you can only meet that by kind of paradoxically taking more time now. So we're good. What else? Have I any other things that are on our mind before we? I know you had some, you know, business that you want to do, and I'd love to hear. This is good, because this is talking about the most important thing of process. You know, what is the way that we're going to work together to lead to a product we all feel good about. So.
I had a question about scheduling, because we do meet once every month, and so going forward, I know you're extremely busy with so many tasks here on the college, but what's going to work best for us to get together? Is once a month? I want to get a general feeling for what the committee feels like. If once a month is an okay meeting, scheduling for the summer, and you know what kind of the summer plans, so that I know.
I'm not sure what everybody feels, but I think that also a little bit of what I'm hearing from the president is that maybe we take even a little bit of space right now before our next meeting. So I might just propose, depending upon the feeling of the committee, that maybe we recess wait for our next meeting maybe until closer to the beginning of the fall semester, just so we have some time to regroup. Maybe President Rocha has some time to kind of meet, process some of this stuff, and to establish goals and things like that, so that we can actually kind of know where to go. The difficult thing that happens during the summer is that a lot of people start moving around, and so our regular schedules are not normal, and so if we're not really on a severe march, it's probably better to take advantage of that space in that way and try to just use it as a time to kind of set up. But maybe one thing that would be kind of, I mean, nice is if we, and maybe what I can do is if I can perhaps meet with you, we could maybe set forward some thoughts for people to begin to kind of establish some ideas of to establish those goals, and, and maybe what some of those things are, and then maybe what I do is disseminate it through Andrea to the committee, and then that way everybody can be working and thinking towards that first meeting that we have, so that it can be a productive meeting and so forth. I think that obviously there are going to be things that the president will want to speak with the architects about, you know, and so forth, which, you know, will happen, you know, and so forth, but like I said, we will. I think that might be a productive use of time. How does that sound?
How familiar are you with what the architects have in place already?
Only generally. I don't know.
Okay. So to extend anything, I think that maybe Dr. Rocha needs to be brought up to speed on what
Oh,
the
I think
architects
so.
have, and then keep the meetings going, not such as a rushed pace as we've been doing, but continue the meetings, because the work that you guys have put into this should not just be thrown by the wayside. And we've gotten this far. Let's keep going. We can gather more information. We can keep the website going. We can keep the feedbacks coming. We can look at the alternatives. We don't have to rush on that part. But to completely, it almost sounds as if we're going to take a break and then we're going to start this over again, when all that really needs to happen is Dr. Rocha needs to be brought up to speed by Susan and by the architects on what we have done, because you guys have done a tremendous amount of work. Our goals have been defined. Our goals were defined not by one person, but by the committee altogether and our subcommittees. So let's not throw all of that out the window. Let's just bring Dr. Rocha up to speed. These were our goals. This is what we were looking for. These were the outcomes we wanted. These were some of the examples that we're presenting. And we know it's not sustainable for you to be at every single meeting, but just to get you on board so that we have some direction as to where you want to go.
My sense is that, you know, if we have a chance to sort of get you more up to speed on this thing, that the reconstructing of this will have more to do with a reach-out program to the rest of the campus. That was kind of X'd out of the program for budget reasons, and I think that's a serious issue that we need to come back and revisit. And that, I think, will help to get this dialogue going. And, you know, the information that we've collected and gathered to this point is fuel for that, and share that and get the inputs that we need to move forward. And that may mean the schedule does in fact extend out and all that. But if we have an opportunity to share that with you, we can sort of make some proposals about how that schedule might stretch out, put some specific dates and semesters and so forth to it, and then come back at some point and be able to share that and say, does this seem to work okay, and have your input and so forth before we go ahead. So I think there is some stuff that needs to be done, and I think you're right. It needs to involve you if we can.
Something surely to be said for momentum, which is what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure.
Which is what we have.
Well, I'd just like to add that I really appreciate the fact that we can slow down, because the pace was fever pitch, and just to get meetings set up, you know, the trouble we've had just getting the meetings going and have people show up has been difficult. You did a great timeline.
Yeah, really.
I
want to say that there was,
but it was at marathon pace, so to slow down. I agree with Coleman in the fact that to probably catch you up to speed doesn't necessarily involve all of us during the summer. It's going to involve a lot of individual people. And I agree with you, but I don't know that this summer we have to meet as regularly, only because we're going to the 410. And some of us are in departments where the people are 10-month employees and they're gone, leaving very few of us in our departments, making it harder for us to leave. So we're doing the bulk of the work. So we've got more work, fewer people. So the less that I'm just not available as much during the summer, which a lot of you are in the same boat. So the more that the few can get caught up, and then we start back to the process.
And it doesn't mean throwing everything away.
I don't think we're throwing everything
Andre,
away.
I don't. I hope I didn't.
It's bringing, right,
Yeah,
it's bringing
and
him
it's
without destroying what we've already established, or what the point that we've already come to. And the summer, absolutely, but we did agree upon as a committee that we would meet those 2 dates, so if we're not going to meet those 2 dates, you need to make
So
that,
we have-
because July 11th and August, I think.
So you guys were
Which is
trying
fine,
to,
that's
like,
like
Yeah,
Yeah. We were on the push.
Yeah.
well, you know, I had to say, you know, without moving the past, I had expressed these concerns about the speed of the process.
You made yourself clear at the vision session.
You know, it was, you know, difficult to get my hand on the brake. So I'm not stopping. You know, what I would suggest is this: you've got a schedule, whatever your regular schedule is. I'd say, you know, you made a good point about the 410s. Okay, and I think those end whatever they are, August 18th or 15th or something like that. So when we go back to regular schedule, I'd suggest that maybe our next meeting would be whatever your normal period would be in August, at just before the start. And then that would give us 60 days for me to work with you and work with the architects and so on and so forth, and reboot, a lot of the questions wouldn't be, well, what are we changing, but how are we moving forward in the new academic year? Okay. And in the meantime, before we leave today, if there's any decision points, that that we're at in the next 60 days, then let me know where they are so that I can work those through the operations. So, Simon?
Thanks. So I'm very pleased to hear that outreach is going to be emphasized because, again, having to get to the majority of students is near impossible, especially at the pace we were going. I just want to reiterate, I'm not so confident in us not meeting over the summer, only because unless I know how much, as a member of this committee, how much the estimated cost is of extending the contract. So if you can get back to, I guess, this committee with the estimated costs, that'll really, help the student opinion on where this project is headed.
Sure.
So.
Well, that's why I think, it'd take a little bit of time to actually, I need Les to come to speed on the brave new world, because my opinion is set next to yours. It's not any more valid or important than I do to actually try and get my arms around it operationally, so that we can tee up the decisions that we need to make to plan the next year. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So.
I've heard a lot, and I'm in two minds. I think that slowing down is always a good idea, especially when something like this happens. So obviously taking the time to consider and sort of regroup and is always beneficial. On the other hand, I think that coming to that big of a stop over the summer might cause some trust issues to continue to expand. One of the things that I've heard from students is, why are we spending money on construction and not classes? And obviously there are some valid reasons for what we're doing, and you guys talk about them, but students, all 30,000 of them, won't fit into 217, as much as I'd like to push them in. So we need, I think it would help for us especially to be able to, over the summer, be getting information out that says that now that one of the leaders of the group has gone, that doesn't mean the rest of the committee isn't still invested and still working on the project. And I think that even if it's just some basic check-in discussion that you guys have, and those 2 dates sound perfect to me for that, at least it shows for the students that the committee as a whole is still invested in the process, sees some value to it, no matter how we end up going about it. And then the slowing down and bringing the whole community back in for a bigger visioning session, all of that, will go a long way, I think, to helping to restore what's going on. Whereas if I go back and I say, well, they're recessing for the entire summer after all this, I'm not sure that that will work, that will create the unity behind the project as much.
I don't know if I could maybe speak to Simon's points. I think that I actually hear what you're saying. The student concerns that, maybe we're building buildings instead of offering classes is big. And I think that a lot of faculty even share the same concerns, in fact, a lot. However, I'm going to say this, the time that we're talking about of waiting until August is just simply so that we don't do just what the concern is. We don't just start building just to build. And I think that that's what we're just trying to realize where we are before we start something that will involve resources of the college. And so I think that this time between now and August is to assess. I think that one of the very first things that has to happen on August the 11th, did we say, was the meeting time? Is that the time you said?
I don't have that in front of me.
Okay, well, we'll get that out, but would be to answer the question that Hannah posed. And I think that we need to kind of have an idea of where those things are, and hopefully we'll know that by then. And then I would hope in the meantime that just as I will do with the faculty, I hope that you guys can also send the word to the students that we are indeed concerned, we share the concern, the committee, and that's precisely why President Roach has asked us to do what he's asking us to do right now. That is exactly what he wants to do. He wants to get he wants to instead of moving headlong into something, just let's kind of see what it is we're going into.
Well, and that's, I'd say, and I think that'll work. You deserve answers. Everyone deserves answers to those questions. One of the things I'd ask you to work on over the summer is how does a bill become law? You speak of the students, but one of the things you talk about the engineering the process. You know who I am, you know who the board is, we know how the faculty is, and so on and so forth. But how does a bill become law? In other words, how do you communicate to all the students so that you're sure that you have the input you need? Okay, because I can tell you the board is not sure. Okay, and you need to have some discussions, with the board on that, because the board is not sure because it hears many conflicting views among the students, depending on what kind of students, so on and so forth. So those questions deserve an answer. But the answer to why you're building a building for the arts, would be probably not much of a question for students in VAMS, okay, but for students in another area that are in a building that seems kind of okay. It's like, well, what are you doing that for? So I do think this needs to kind of, we need to get down to the foundation, so to speak, use that metaphor upon. So, I think it'll work. I think the other thing that I'm concerned about, again, my experience in governance, both student and faculty, is that the summer is, I'm gravely concerned to hear some of these things. Okay, the summer is a time that there's not many students here. There's not many faculty here. And one of the consistent things that the administration, always gets hit for is, what did you do over the summer while nobody was here? So, that's a concern that I think the board would have. So, but anyway, so what, I will be guided by whatever you want to do as a group, and because I'm here, but what else did we want to accomplish today in addition to setting your meetings?
Should we just make a decision to vote on the meeting? Would that be what would be a good procedure to follow, folks? Would we like to do that?
I think setting a date would be...
Okay,
yeah.
I think so too.
If you stay with the second Wednesdays of every month, the next meeting would be August 8th. That's still in your summer, so
Okay.
if you want to move it until September, and then pick the second Tuesday, second Wednesday in September.
Preference?
I think if we go with August, we're skipping just one meeting.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah,
we're not stopping the process right now.
That's good.
We're skipping one meeting, and it's a tight time
Yeah.
for a lot of people, and other people are away.
You're still in the
And
4/10s
also, we
on
could
August
also,
8th, so
if
that doesn't change any of your
if you guys want, if people are having vacations or whatever, we can move it like to the 15th or to the 22nd. To me, whether it's the second or not, getting into a regular, but when we get into the regular year, I think it should be in a pattern that we can all remember and so forth.
Correct.
Is there?
That would
yeah.
be good.
which will help
good.
all of us who.
It might be good to look at the 15th. We're back on regular calendar then. People are kind of willing to come back to campus because they're preparing anyway.
Okay.
And it's almost the second Wednesday because the first is a Wednesday. So, and then we can get back to our second Wednesday if that's better.
Okay.
In addition to, can we put some sort of a statement out to kind of, tie into the fact that we are canceling one of our meetings and that was scheduled? Would that be something that this board would want to do?
I think that would be good, and what we can do, but I think we'd want to kind of make our votes one at a time and so forth. But,
Sure.
But I think that putting out a statement just to say that the facilities committee is happy. Well, I think it is good news. We want to make this a good news thing, right? To
Yeah.
announce that we are taking some time to consider the master plan and the goals and objectives of the master plan, and that we will be meeting again in August. And I think that that is I think that that's a very good thing. And I think that we need to work together to disseminate the information as we have with everything else, and just simply say that that is what we're doing. As you guys remember, those of you who are here, it was a whole discussion whether we should do it or not meet in the summer anyway, because typically the committee didn't meet in the summer. So I don't think this will be so unusual for people, and I think we're all being good. So
Yeah.
and I think that that's what everybody's goal is here. So if I could maybe ask if somebody would put forward the motion that we need, would somebody like to do that?
I move we meet on August 15 from 2 to 3 p.m.
Okay, who would like to second?
Second.
Okay. Those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Okay. All right. So we will do that, and then
We didn't even have not everyone voted.
okay.
Some of
I'm
us are not allowed.
sorry.
They're not
Some
on
of
the
us.
committee.
Yeah.
Do
right.
we
Since
even
we only have
quorum?
7 people, we don't have a quorum, so you can't.
So we can't even have a vote on that because we don't have quorum. So
Is
So
that
I'll be
something
sending
really
out
that
a-
needs to be voted on?
yes, it does.
Just the next meeting?
So we'll have to cancel the July 11th meeting.
Boy, this is
Was-
just really.
I'm not clear on the issue.
I guess the issue was whether we had to have a vote to change our meeting schedule.
Well, I thought you just voted to have it on August 15th.
Well, she
There's no
probably
We don't have a
don't
quorum.
have.
President Rocha, we don't have a quorum.
We don't have a quorum of the members today?
No.
Okay. Well, that's all the more the problem in the summer. You won't have a quorum the next meeting.
The faculty-
And by the way, that's the problem with shared governance, okay? It's because, you have so many meetings that I didn't tell you, there's a lot of meetings that go in and we spend 15 minutes talking about a meeting, okay, we don't have a quorum. If we have a meeting in July and August, I guarantee you, there'll be chunks of people missing here in the thing. You may even be out, who knows? And then just, well, I wasn't there. And you just go through that prerogative drill, which instead of actually getting to the work, okay, it's not the meeting, it's the work. So you can have a meeting, lots of meetings, but you actually have to get this work done so the committee has something to look at and make recommendations to me. So, Hannah.
Well, I'm a student, and I understand this campus is not impacted with students during the summer, but I'm not taking a summer class, and I'm still committing to come to these meetings because it is my position and because I was appointed to this committee. So if there are members of this committee who aren't able to make it, I would put forth the recommendation that we find representatives who can make these summer meetings, because after all that's happened, and because there's the possibility that this project could cost a lot more than we had intended for it to be, we owe it to this college to make the summer meetings. That is my opinion as a student representative.
Oh, I'm sorry.
For the students, we have actually, in anticipation that some of the shared governance committees will still need to meet over the summer, we have made, or we're about to make appointments to fill the student seats through summer.
Great.
I think one of the problems is the people that aren't here today are the faculty, and those faculty are the ones that'll be gone. Most of the other people here are the ones that are here during the summer. So you're probably preaching to the choir right now.
Oh,
So
great.
I don't know how we get the faculty to
Well,
replace the faculty.
that's the point. Okay, first, shared governance, okay, is everyone, the faculty, you won't have a quorum in July, you won't have a quorum in August, okay? People will be on their vacations. Faculty, if they're not on assignment, are not paid to be here. They won't be here. So, it's, I think, the thing that you decided is fine, to set the, August 15th meeting, but even that will be a possibility of an ineffectual meeting because the faculty aren't here. Even this meeting itself, right? the faculty aren't here, so we're going to go through this, and this will be a nice conversation. And then a lot of the key governance members will not have seen it. So then what are we going to do? We're going to have another meeting for them so they can see it, because if they don't see it, we can't move forward, right?
See it on
So
YouTube.
this is what I'm talking about. The problem is not meetings. The problem is, what process are you going to engineer to have everybody in, okay? And to have kind of, shared governance doesn't produce anything, and to have a shared governance meeting to discuss shared governance meetings instead of facing the reality, just if the students were gone entirely, okay, and we were just going to continue through with a meeting even though you guys were gone, okay, you would call us on that, okay? So to not have the faculty, which are the most important enduring institution in the college, okay, the faculty will be here long after you graduate, okay? And they have the biggest responsibility and the biggest actually weight of the decision on all of these things. And just say, well, we're going to have a meeting. If even though they're not here, it doesn't make this meeting very productive and not a productive use of everybody's time. So I do think that, kind of taking a break until you decided August 15th. If not, then I don't know. You're kind of stuck there, Hannah. What do you think, Hannah?
Well, we did schedule this meeting during finals week, and the students and the faculty who were at that meeting agreed to be here. So if faculty members aren't coming to these meetings, then we simply need to replace them. That's the protocol for.
We simply
for
need to what?
Replace them with other faculty members.
Well, that's not. How do you do that? Okay. Who has the power to just replace faculty on a shared governance meeting? I don't.
Faculty do.
Yeah,
Okay, and that would take 3 months.
If they're,
Well,
if they're
We would have
quorum,
to go to the
then-
Senate. Okay. Shared governance. Okay. Policy 2000. All right. Just like you guys appoint representatives to the committees, only the Senate appoints faculty to the committee. Not Coleman, not me, not the Board of Trustees can just say, you're not coming to the meeting, so you come to the meeting. Okay, so that would mean if you would propose doing that, and I wouldn't, that we'd have to go to the Senate, which is not in session right now, okay, and then ask them to put new members who themselves would say, well, I'm not going to be here for the summer. Okay, so, if we can just kind of like move towards, an outcome here, because again, because no matter what we do, you don't have a quorum today, so you can't conduct business. There you go. You're not going to have a quorum in July. No matter what you insist on doing, you're not going to have a quorum. No matter what you insist on doing, you're not going to have a quorum in August. So it seems to me that for us to be respectful of you, if we knew that we shouldn't have just keep going with meetings when we know that all of our colleagues are not going to be there. Now that's just me, okay? Because then if you did, how would you conduct business? And then I would say, well, what are your minutes going to say? Never mind. You have, these guys we're paying a lot of money to, all right? They bill us hourly against their contract. And what are we going to say today? Never mind? That they're going to present all this stuff? And this is what I'm saying, okay, guys? We have to figure out how to do that. So no one, least of all me, is going to command faculty to the next meetings.
Then how are we going to have shared governance meetings?
I think that you would yield to the majority in the room and just say, can we lay this over until August 15th so that we can figure this out? And then maybe Coleman can use his relationships and influence with his colleagues and say, can you do me a favor? Unless you're out of town, can you please be there on the 15th?
Hannah, I'll work on that, but it does take a little bit of time to do that. So. I think we're all interested in the same thing, to be honest with you. I trust. No, please, I mean.
I do.
Yeah. and I think that I would like to try to do that, because one of the difficult things is that I've had trouble keeping, even during the school year, as you probably know. I don't know if you've taken account, but Andrea will tell you, but I am the only faculty member here, and so I have to get other people, you know, in the committee and so forth and so on. So we just do the best we can. It's hard, but I will work on that, and I'll work on that before I leave this summer. I have I will be out of town in the middle of July, out of the country actually, and so but I will be back towards the middle of July, and so I hope before I leave that I've got an idea, but I'll have to reconfirm with people that they will come to that meeting. But I will set as my goal, and listen, you're hearing me now, I will, God, and it's gonna just bite me in the, I know, but I will get you your 2 faculty members. Is it 2 more that I
We have to look at that as
yeah,
well.
I
with
think
the
it's
new vacancies.
2. I think
we
it's
need to
2.
fill.
But I will look for people who will come to our meetings and support our efforts and so forth.
We
That's the
appreciate
best.
that effort too, because I mean, like
Thank you.
like President Rocha is saying, we can't move forward until we have this quorum. We can't conduct any business, and so, you know, even if myself as a student has to go, and you know,
Yeah.
these professors and you know,
Yeah.
part of the academic senate, they're interested, I'm sure,
Right.
and maybe even the popularity with the community could even help that.
Yeah.
In
Well, and it's, like he said, it's my job to go to the Senate and to do it in the proper way. So I will do that. And so for, because only the Senate can do that. But I would also suggest that so that we don't waste the time of the architects and spend the money, we wait until we contact and say we're ready to have that I want to confirm that we have the fact we have a quorum, we have a committee ready to meet on August 15th.
Well, I'm confident we will, because
Okay.
we'll be doing a lot of work.
Okay.
And, you know, I think that every member
Well,
of
I'm
the,
gonna
every
try to
member
get
of the
people
committee
together, but I
will
want a confirmation
wanna
so
be
that
there.
so we can get that, so we can have a proper meeting and so forth,
Yeah.
and do it. But I think that that will be good.
Good.
Okay. Can I ask for one thing, and I know that we're really running over our time, but Jack, if you could please give us a summary of what's going on at least with some of the different projects on campus. This is
We'll start with, of course, the largest being the Center for the Arts. As we've told you before, that the Center for the Arts was scheduled for completion December 16th, 2012 this year. The completion date that was agreed to with some of the events of the undiscovered work out on the old abandoned Sierra Bonita, and we've reported that before. And along the north side of the GM building, we lost some time in the demo work. So the contractor is due that time. And there's been some other changes, but nonetheless, the bottom line is the fair end date now that we've tentatively agreed to is March 3rd, 2013. Edge Development is in the process of being taken over by a bond company, or their bond company, and is going to send out RFPs this Friday for contractors to take over the project. Still under the guidelines and purview and direction of the bond company. Buying into that March 3rd date. That March 3rd date also is contingent that we don't have any more additions on the district side and or unforeseen events, which are always possible. If they do, then the contractor is on the hook for liquidated damages after that time. That said, the project is moving along very well, even though they're in the process of the bond company taking over. The workmanship we're still having no issues with. The crews have increased in size and contractors showing up. One, because there's more areas for them to work, but two, there were some, step back a little bit, there were some issues because of the bond company taking over with Edge falling behind in their payments to the subs. That has been resolved, and we are absolutely current with them up through April. Their May payout, which was probably due last week, I'll get tomorrow, so it's only a week late. So as far as billing, they're current. So that is one of the reasons that the subs have also staffed up, because now, of course, like anybody else, they want to be paid. There's just so much work going on, and lucky for me, I get to go down and I get to wander around and see all of it, and we've made that offer to you guys. If you want to, just give me a call. I'll be happy to take anybody that wants to see, but it's incredible. It's going to be an absolutely incredible building, and everybody, I took the oversight committee, they weren't able to make it on their last scheduled meeting because it rained, and we did a little side trip that they voted on that date, and unfortunately they all weren't there, but the people that I took through, just, it takes your breath away. Every floor I go up, every time I do it, it takes your breath away. It's going to be an incredible building, and you don't get to see how big it is until you've walked the inside. The little theater is concrete block, and they were waiting for, because it is such a congested site, they were waiting for certain activities to occur so that they could put all their forces on the masonry, and you're going to see that happen. The exterior studs, once that goes up, that's when you're going to see it. Now you've got a building, because right now it looks just like levels, but and all that's going to occur real rapid. They are trying to better that March 3rd date. That's the date that we mutually agreed to. That doesn't mean they're not trying to better that date, and they are. And we get updated every single week at our construction meetings with schedule. Their scheduler is now on site 3 days a week. So I'm excited. I mean, you know, we were kind of slow getting out of the gate, but I think if we can keep this momentum up, we stand a good chance to either make it up or beat the date. So I'm hopeful for that. And I don't see any problems with the bond company taking over, or the whoever the general contractor will be. This bond company, I've been working with them a little bit in the last 3 weeks, and they're really on the spot.
I've got a question. Then, if the bond company then is RFP for general contractors,
Yes.
then what happened? Jesus, does this mean that
subcontractors are bound?
Are already bound to
through the bond company, through the new general.
Okay.
In the agreement.
Okay.
As well are they to our terms and conditions of the specifications. Okay. So they're bound to everything that Edge was bound to.
Okay, and so then the general contractor then will assume, the subcontractors perhaps, if any flaws in work and things like that, will they?
The bond company is on the hook.
The
bond company is on the hook for everything. That has not changed.
Okay.
The only thing is Edge self-performs a lot of their own masonry and concrete work. So whether the bond company, through the new general, decides to keep those specific people on, or bring in a masonry company, subcontractor, if you will, or a concrete contractor, is up to the bond company. But either way, we're not going to be hurt.
I think it would sure be nice if they could bring, they're very skilled.
And they're trying to do that. Yeah. Right. So anyway, that's the arts. Our building restroom project is gorgeous. They just finished setting the tile. It's gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. And remember, the first one complete will be the women's restroom side. It's just, they're setting the plumbing fixtures today, the tiles all done. The lobbies, I would say 75% done. We're getting ready to put the tile in the lobby floor in the foyer. So that project is probably 3 weeks out for completion. And we need that because, remember, the restroom unit that we're using at the south side as a temporary measure is the last unit that actually gets set and should fall right into place with the Science Village. The elevator project, elevator upgrade project is out to bid, and we gave the contractors more time. We only had one bidder last time, and the responses were they needed more time. So we gave them another, I think, 3 weeks. So by the end of July the bids are due, and hopefully we'll have a contractor on board to start that project. And that's the R, C, and E elevators. That's pretty much for Measure P. Oh, the C building handicap access. I informed Dr. Rocha that our architects, NTD, had taken the plan to DSA, and they had a few issues with some slopes right at the entrance, or actually right to my left. We worked that out, and DSA approved. Then all of a sudden, they decided that we're in the process of closing out the ITB and Campus Center with DSA, and those were some issues that we had with the inspector. So literally, you're holding up a closeout for pennies. I don't mean it money-wise, but I mean as an example of how close we are. But because of that, they decided to not review the plans, or not to approve the plans until the ITB and Campus Center are approved. Would you call that holding hostage? Hostage, I would. But you didn't hear me say that. But that's DSA. DSA does what DSA wants, and we've had issues with DSA for quite some time. We've made that pretty clear. So as soon as we can figure out what we're going to do, they have a new director that they brought up from the San Diego office, and I was supposed to meet with him and Dr. Van Pelt, so my direction is to keep going forward with that, so I'll set up that meeting and see if I can't find out what this holdup is about, but that's really the only other Measure P project that we have going on. I don't know if you wanted any updates on anything else.
That's good. For myself, I think that's
Were there any
fine.
questions?
I don't have any questions. If anybody else has any questions, my only concerns had to do with the contract and how that acquisition would affect the contractors' agreements
and
with
district council has been involved the whole way, the whole process. So
typically, just so everybody, so I can explain to those of you who don't know, but typically all of the subcontractors would be tied contractually through the general contractor, and so if the company, if you're kind of replacing the general contractor, then you're kind of messing with everybody's contracts and so forth. But it sounds to me like a clean deal and so forth. So that's the only thing I was just curious about. It's just to see. I wonder, if you guys would like to talk.
I mean, I'd love to, but I know everybody, we're really late, and what I could do is, and the purpose of this was to kind of summarize some of the things we've been hearing and put forward some options for everybody to start thinking about. So I'll try to do this rapidly, and it's kind of food for thought for the summer. So we'll obviously be coming back to revisit this, and they may have changed, there may change, but I think it's kind of a way of kind of pulling together some of the thinking that's been going on, and I can probably do it in 5 minutes.
Okay.
So if it's okay, I'll do that.
By all means.
I actually did put a chip in there. What do you call it? Thumb drive. And so does this work?
It does.
Oh, great. Okay. I even have a pointer somewhere.
Will you need the lights dimmed?
Probably a little bit, yeah. Why don't you take that? That's a copy of the show, so you just kind of, it's fairly straightforward at this point. As you guys have recalled, we had a number of meetings with various villages. I like that term, and have had some discussions about the various components of the master plan that were at least a part of our original objectives. And as you recall, they were broken down into kind of three categories. There's modernization, there's seismic upgrade, and then there's sustainability. And those three things are kind of, in a way, set by the findings of what the needs are for modernization, what the needs are for seismic, and the goals that we've set for sustainability. Over and above that, there have been a number of other things that have been on the table for discussion as needs at the campus, one of which was the Innovation Center. What do we do with Sexton Hall? what do we do with W building, a series of other things that I'll kind of remind everybody about. But let's see here. Something doesn't work. There we go.
Is it turned on?
How does it turn it on? I don't see a switch for.
I think it might be on now. The laser seems to.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, okay. Where is it?
Start.
Yeah, there we go. I'm gonna. Where do I find it here?
Maybe under my computer.
Yeah, right.
Richard, you must be a fellow vacuum.
Yeah. Yeah, I am. Well,
You're having all the same issues I have.
I have Mac at home and PC at the office, so yeah, I gotta kind of switch hats here.
You guys.
Yeah, there we go. So what I did, and it's a quick summary of some of the early stuff that are goals and objectives, and then I kind of get right to these alternatives. So let me. Okay. All right. There we are. So we may have to come back and revisit this name at the end of the day, but I do have your quote in there, past, proud past, global future, which I think is actually very, it's perfect for this kind of master plan, because it does, you know, kind of focus us on the things that are important from our past and moving forward to build on those into the future. So these were those three categories, and as you recall, under the modernization category, it's renovating and upgrading mostly the buildings that are kind of in the academic core, C, D, E, R, that have, you know, not reached the end of their life cycle, but certainly need some tender love and care to bring them back up to their function as they should be. And that would include the functional program requirements in terms of, as things, for example, move into the Center for the Arts, then what backfills in other places, and all those kinds of things. It opened up a whole series of options around the campus. And then, of course, reviewing how the campus works from a pedestrian and placemaking point of view. And then trying to envision, as we've talked about in the visioning session, what are the facilities that we'll need in the future, continue the work, and any new programs and so forth that are envisioned. And then from a seismic point of view, it's these have been identified clearly by a series of engineering studies, and so they become a part of the implementation in the master plan and ultimately for the funding that would be required. Sustainability, there's a series of categories we've talked about, and as I thought at some point it would be a good idea to have a full session just on sustainability, and there's a lot of issues in there that are underway, and we have to, I think, really come to a collective decision about the goals for the campus that we want to move toward, because they can be very broad, they can be very restrictive on the one hand, or they can be a lot looser and still achieve certain kinds of or levels of sustainability. So then these are what I call other master plan components, and they're very specific things that have come up, as you know. For example, there's some serious seismic issues with the U building, and so that is planned to be replaced with what's called the STEM Center. This new innovation center I mentioned, remodeling and reuse of R, looking at Section Auditorium. Do we remodel that, or do we build a new theater? We've had those discussions, and if so, where does that go? Looking at the remodel of D&E building, and of course the rest of C around Section, and then a couple of other things that have come up during the course of our discussions here and from the discussions in the visioning session, and that was a welcome center, could be combined with a conference center or a standalone conference center, a university center which is envisioned as a a 4-year institution on the campus. It may be 10 or 20 classrooms that's occupied either by another university or of a for-profit style, or it could be another CSU campus or what. I'm not sure it's that well defined yet. And then the notion of looking at distributed locations for learning centers so that they're not all just in the library or elsewhere. This was the process, and we're sort of in this kind of process here of defining the overall and precinct planning and defining specific projects and developing alternatives to look at and discuss to eventually move forward to some consensus master plan. I'm going to go through these very quickly just to, this is kind of the various buildings that are on the plan, how the campus is organized functionally at the moment. And there are certain buildings that are exclusive to certain functions. Obviously, the new art center will be focused on arts and music, performing arts as well. Athletics, obviously, the library, facilities, industrial technology, student center, student services all have specialized focuses and won't change in all likelihood. So then we're focusing on the core of academic buildings that are sort of identified here, and without saying what happens to them, we know we're going to retrofit or at least remodel and upgrade D, E, and C and R, and looking towards a replacement of the existing science building, U, and because of its condition and a number of other issues that's related to W building, a replacement, it becomes essentially a site for one of the subject projects that may come in the master plan. It's just kind of a 3D view of that. And then these are the alternatives. And the key, I think, is keep your eye on the theater, because the first alternative really should have been just leaving section where it is and remodeling, and we have a plan for that. I'll show you in a second. But discussions have come up for 4 different locations. This one down on parking lot P5 has some advantages. It's a little out of the sort of mainstream of the campus, but it does have a outside presence. It's nearby parking access, so you could loop buses and drop off and so forth around, so that community access would be easy and so forth. So that's one location. In this particular alternative, the STEM Center would basically go back onto the U site after the U building has been demolished. The Innovation Center would go into the old section auditorium space, and I'll show you some sketches on that. And then there is a need for, if the building W goes away, there's still a need for pool equipment, lockers, other kinds of things for the pool. So in this scenario, there's a new open space plan and a pool building that would accommodate those facilities. Our building would be remodeled for business and computer tech in this model. There's probably around 80,000 square feet of assignable square footage in that space. We have a plan that it could actually increase that floor plan size by 10%, and I'll show you how that would work. And it would change radically the scope and quality and character of that building. Now, the theater, in this case, we suggested perhaps it replaces the W building. And the advantages are that it's fairly near parking here. You could almost make a direct access. You might have a bridge across the roadway here, so you come directly into a lobby area. The ground floor or the basement area could be for the pool equipment. You could also have a wing that would have performing arts classrooms and perhaps back of house and other things associated with it, and a small plaza up near the bookstore. In this scenario, we were suggesting that the Innovation Center, along with business and computer technology, could go into and the University Center into the R building in that remodel. A new computer center would go into the old section space in this case, the study center, learning center. STEM Center would still remain where it's located. In this case, we looked at remodeling the theater, and the idea would be you'd reduce the amount of seats, you'd create a second, where the existing balcony is, would become a small sloped floor lecture hall of about 150 to 200, The ground floor would be 1,000 to 1,200 seats. So, and then of course you'd remodel the rest of the facility, which needs it pretty desperately. In this case, we'd move the STEM center to the W building site. And it would be, as you recall, the plans that were done previously called for 3 phases of it, so that the first phase is a one-to-one replacement that would utilize state funds, which you, I think, have a request in for at the moment. And then there would be a phase 2 and 3, which would complete the need that's been identified for math and science and other kinds of components. And so the STEM project, phase 1 would be on the W site, and then phase 2 and 3 would go into the R building along with the business and computer technology. And then over on the old U building site, since it's such a prominent entry point to the campus, this would be a place where we would think that maybe the University Center, a Welcome Center, a cafe that faces out onto the Arts Mall, Innovation Center might go at that location, along with maybe a deck of parking as well. So it creates an entry to the campus at that point. The last alternative is not radical, I don't think, but puts the theater out along with the University Center at that front door, so that you've got a real presence to the community for the theater. It's got its back of house cafe facing out onto and lobby facing out onto the Arts Mall and a University Center. The configurations these are not buildings, these are diagrams. They represent what we think is the appropriate square footage, but not necessarily a plan that's finalized at this point. Although I think PBWS did a nice little job in creating a plaza here at the STEM building and a potential connection to phase 2 in the R building. So those are the broad alternatives, in addition to modernization, seismic upgrade, and so forth. And then we looked at a couple of these things a little more specifically because we needed to understand really what an innovation center was and what is the idea with this. And we've studied some other models at other campuses, the one at Stanford, the one at Harvard, and they basically are experimental classrooms. They might have, folding doors across. They all share some kind of experimental workplace in the center where new furniture types can be tested out. They can have movable partitions and create situations where they experiment with different pedagogies and so forth, methods. And there would be a storage and an office associated with each one of those classrooms. The idea being that there are perhaps 8 to 15 faculty members in residence in the program at one per semester. And then they may rotate out. They were there for a semester or a year, test out their programs, and then they go back and put those back into practice with the rest of the campus, and new faculty come in to do additional experimentation. We looked at a couple of different alternatives of how we might fit that into the section auditorium space. As you know, it's a very high volume, so we were able to get two schemes here. One on the left gets us 2 floors with a big open space and skylights and glazing to the courtyards on both sides. And the third one, the first one doesn't excavate the basement basically. The one to the right looks at basically excavating below the sloped seating floor so that you have space there. You come in from the alley, or you come in off the front portions of the building, and then you have 2 floors above that. You don't get that much more square footage, and the cost of doing that seems to us like it may not be a cost benefit to the campus. You get about 10 stations in the example to the left, maybe get 14 or 15 in the one to the right. Looking at these kind of 1 floor at a time, this is the one without the excavation. So you have an opportunity for some classrooms on this lower level that would be accessed, in this case, off the main corridor, and then from the back, a stair up to the 2nd floor, which is the main kind of experimental work floor space with the classrooms kind of facing around that. And then up on the 2nd floor, there's a big open space with a stair down into that large experimental workspace, and everything sort of surrounds that with glazing and a skylight so that it's a real kind of a lively, exciting space. This is kind of a section looking through that. This is what you would call the second floor of the main building. This is the alley in the back. This is the front steps coming up the main hallway here. So you'd enter, and these classrooms are sort of framing or around that large open space. Second floor there kind of have a balcony that overlooks that. You'd expose the trusses and get some skylights and things and so forth. This one is where we excavate the lower level, and it just adds that one level. The two levels above that are quite similar, and it gets 4 or 5 more stations. And that's how this would work. So you basically have a ground floor work experiment area surrounded by classrooms, and then we cut a hole out of this floor, but you still do have workspace around that. So there's 2 levels of kind of this experimental teaching area along with the classrooms, and then the 3rd floor is similar to the other one with just balconies.
Richard, can you go back just to,
sure.
Can I see a plan view?
We know what, I didn't bring one, but
or just back to the yeah. And so the C building currently is in sort of the gray, the shaded gray.
that's the front portion of it. It actually goes around, and there are 2 wings, and there's a courtyard in between on either side of section. I'm sorry.
So this, but I think that what folks need to kind of see and understand, the reason I ask these questions is because this is really going out the rear end of the building now.
Oh yeah.
Because there's a portion that there's a gap that I have where this is really going on top of the V building. Right?
Oh no, we're not moving outside the envelope of the existing building. This is the proscenium right here, and that is the alley. We're not moving out beyond that.
Okay, because I was looking at those 2 wings there.
This is the front. This is the north. This is the south.
Got it.
So,
but
They just didn't build out the east and west wings.
Okay.
They chopped it out.
yeah, we just cut the axonometric so you could see a little bit better. Sorry about that.
Okay.
All right. So here's a plan of the floor. This is the whole C building. So as you recall, there are 2 little courtyards on both sides. We actually cut that other model here, so we didn't show the 2 wings.
Got it.
So I'm sorry, it was so confusing.
I'm being too much an architect.
No, that's okay. I'm sorry. This is a little too architectural for the discussion, but we needed to do some of this investigation to be able to talk about it in terms of, is it feasible, so that we can get with our cost estimator and say, you know, maybe this is something that's outside the box in terms of what we need to spend to get an innovation center, or is it? And put it on the table with some, you know, reasonable assurity that we've got some information that's factual for you. This is the remodel of section that we looked at, and that is the ground floor. We actually would put restrooms, a lobby off the main entrance, and reduce the seating to about 1,200 in here. The stage area remains the same. On the second floor, we'd actually build a wall. This is a section. So we'd actually build a wall here so that this is now an enclosed sloped floor classroom, 150 to 200 people. That's sort of that remodel scheme for section. And, you know, I mean, one of the things that we didn't have some discussion about, and I did have these discussions with Rick, and he didn't seem to pay attention, but section auditorium remodel is probably $15–16 million. New theater is $45–50 million. And I think that discussion needs to be way up front on the table so that you don't go down a road that is not going to be acceptable to the board and may not be feasible in terms of a public bond measure, you know, and how does the community feel about that? This is our idea for a major remodel to our building. And what it suggests is that we're pushing, right now, these are partial shear walls along where you have the doors to the classrooms and the outdoor balcony. And we're suggesting that we push that structure out with an exoskeleton and then move the walls out. So you have actual natural lighting in the classrooms on every floor, both north and south. And if you've been up on the 5th floor balconies out there, painters love it because it's got these great views of the mountains. It's a great place. You've got, the drawback is there would be some columns in some of the classrooms, but it could be accomplished, I think, in the context of a major remodel, and it would get you about 5 to 7% more square footage, which could be a real benefit. This is just how, this is the outdoor balconies. The structure would move now out to that edge, and that would allow these to be removed and these to be glazed walls so that you'd have natural light into every classroom. This isn't a concept for what if we put the Innovation Center into several floors of the R building. And this is two different ways of doing that. One where you kind of still circulate through the center of the open space, and these classrooms all exit out through that open space, and they have their central sort of experimental workstation. There are columns in that. There would be actually columns in this space too. It's not shown, but this is another alternative where you actually leave the corridor on the south side, push the wall out here, and these people all exit out towards this southern exit. Gives a bigger space and actually increases the square footage. But so those are thoughts and ideas that are food for thought for everybody. Nothing is fixed and nothing. I mean, it's meant to be able to inform the discussion primarily. So that's sort of where we are at the moment. Obviously, there's a lot of data and a lot of you know, as someone else mentioned, minutes from the meetings and discussions we've had. So.
Sure. No, that's great.
You've heard me say it before. I'm concerned there's no mention of V building.
Well, and there's a specific reason for that. Pick an alternative, and you would want to do something different for V. For example, if section remains where it is, we're going to have to deal with some back of house, shops, and other things in the V building. If the theater goes somewhere else, you would want to incorporate those components along with the theater in that location. It changes the nature of what might be in the V building. I think our feeling is that they're going to want to all be arts related to some extent, because one, with the reduction, when we, as you recall, in the height of the inflationary periods of construction, the estimate for the Art Center was $46 million. Maybe down to 43. We ended up getting it for like 27 or 8, but that was a simple fact that that moment in time in the market gave them a break. And I think the fact that Edge is no longer in business is an indication of what the difficulties were that were caused for many contractors in that situation. But the point is that a lot of program got cut out, and it was intended to either go in the B building or somewhere nearby. But it's never been quite resolved as to where it goes and how it goes and so forth. And so we have a list of what the program items that would go in there, but depending on what the final consensus plan is, it might change that dramatically. Right now we have 10 pounds of stuff that wants to go in a 5-pound bag. So, you know, either we find other locations for it, or I think Rick had talked about maybe, in fact, we had given a proposal to Rick at one point to do a feasibility study on whether we could add 2 floors to the building to be able to accommodate that other 5 pounds of stuff that needs to go somewhere. But it all depends on what else happens on the campus as to what the impact is in terms of space needs in B. But it's not off the table at all.
Okay, well, I've never heard that explanation, and it makes a lot of sense. But it'd be nice if it's at least mentioned that that's still a piece.
We'll go back and do that. I agree with you.
Jim, you can rest assured that being co-chair of the committee, that I will see that it does, because my current classrooms are in that building.
Yeah. Well, it's not forgotten, believe me.
Yeah.
It's really not.
It's, I guess I get concerned because it's in limbo. It's
I understand.
either the end of the one or the beginning of the other.
And I know, and I think it was originally a part of the previous bond measure. And last I heard, there was, because of this reduction in terms of the final bid amount for the Art Center, or Center for the Arts, that the thought was that money could then be used for the remodel of V. And I think it's still in limbo because we're trying to wait and see what happens with you know, the Center for the Arts now and so forth.
Appreciate it.
Oh, it's good.
I think
You know,
that's really
I think
great.
we're really at a good point here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good.
And I have some copies here. I didn't make enough, but if you'd like to take those away, anybody?
I will definitely.
Yeah, and I'll take one as well. And I think that what we will do is I think there'll be some communication to the committee prior to the 15th, just to confirm our meeting and the agenda.
Okay.
Suzanne will be providing some notes and so
Yeah, we
forth
have
to
notes
me.
of all of the work group meetings
Yeah.
are
Okay.
all written up now, and they can be, I'm gonna pass them to Coleman and he can pass them on to you.
Right, and so we
Okay.
can sit down
Good.
and we
See where
can
everything-
talk about that stuff and so forth, and so
Good.
you can see and so forth what's been done and so forth. So, but this is good, and we look, I think that by the 15th, the president and everybody will kind of have their heads better around
Sure.
the thing.
Oh,
But
no.
we
We'll
do
be fine.
need, since we do have, since the big elephant's not in the room, we don't have Rick here I don't, he wasn't an elephant, but he, certainly he encompassed much of the vision, and so we just need to kind of fill in that massive void that we have and move forward, and I think that with the president, coming into this and getting basically the background that he'll need to be able to play that critical role, or to designate who he wishes to play that role, will be important for us. And so I wrote the president, just so you guys know, some days ago, just to say, look, this is an important thing that we've got to do, and we want to maintain this. And so we're giving him a whole lot of stuff that he has to catch
No,
up
it's good.
with, and so
we needed to do this anyway, so
Yeah.
it's an opportunity. So, no, this is great. So we'll do our work, off stage, and have a good working meeting on the 15th.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great.
Thank everybody very much, and sorry for the
No, that's
4 o'clock.
It's about as long a meeting as you need. It's good to see you guys.
Nice to see you. I look forward to getting to you.
Is, I'll get with you and get a couple of weeks. And I'm trying to get